I paid very close attention to the equity crowdfunding world since 2016. And I first learned of it through Legion M. I'm sure you know them.
One of the first 19 campaigns.
Exactly. And I was paying very close attention to what they were building. I was listening very close to how they spoke about Hollywood, living and working in Hollywood, and how they articulated that to the uninitiated. And I was always very impressed with, they were the first company to cross $1 million of any company in equity crowdfunding. And we've watched them like a hawk for our company, to the point where Jeff Anderson, the president, is one of our investors. He was down at Comic-Con too.
Right.
And so we are, we've invested in them. They've invested in us, and I love what they do. And did you say Mark Haride?
No, the co-founder of Start Engine.
Start Engine. Okay.
Howard Marks.
Do you know Mark Haride, who wrote the book on? He's from the SEC. He's our lawyer. He's from the SEC. He wrote the book on equity crowdfunding, the first book on it, in the SEC regulations to a book, and he's our general counsel and advisor. And I definitely, if you would like, I'm happy to make an intro to Mark, because he's just a wonderful person to know. I'm sure you guys know a lot of the same people. He's a beautiful soul, and I'm always very grateful to just have him on our side.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, as I said, our purpose at this point is to build an audience, share what we consider to be the most exciting campaigns. And that's really what this is about, ultimately. And hopefully drive more traffic to your campaigns. And if it works, wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yes, as I said, I'm interested primarily from the entrepreneur's point of view. So give us an idea, if you would, what originally led to the startup in this case? What led you to decide to do it?
So there's lots of whys, and I can go through a spectrum of them, everything from just paying very close attention to the trajectory of culture, the trajectory of social media. The next step in social media is storytelling. But the true why is I grew up in Marvel. My dad is a comic book critic and writer. And when I was 10 years old, he wrote a novel for his favorite character, the Silver Surfer. And he developed all these original characters for this novel with my mom and I. And he would workshop it at dinner, and he'd go and he'd write for hours. And it was a joyous experience to watch my dad create for his favorite character. And then Marvel decided not to publish the book because of these new characters he created, saying that essentially Marvel likes to introduce new characters separately in other properties first and then bring them all together. And so it was outside the Marvel protocol to introduce so many new characters in his new book. So that was the reasoning behind shelving the book. And my dad got depressed. He went into a depression. And I watched this as a 10, 11-year-old. And, I said to myself, I got very upset at Marvel. I boycotted Marvel for a little bit when I was a kid. But the real takeaway was that I felt like anybody should be able to contribute to their favorite stories. And that sensation, that feeling in my body where I just felt like, no, it has to be with all of us. We all have to be doing it, just stayed with me. And when I studied video games and then I went to NYU for film, that ensemble creativity was always in my mind. And I wanted to make a movie or a show where anybody could join the cast. And there was just no platform to do so. So we just built one, and it's called Reelwurld. And it's the first cinematic social network where anything you post is part of a movie or a show that we're making together as a community. And bless you, that's my son. So, for people to be able to create their own characters, own their own characters, and to have a system, the way we look at story is a container for other people's stories. To have a system that's similar to, say, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where every character has their own narrative, but they all intertwine. You have to design story like that to perform like that. And that's something that we've I grew up around, and something that we've worked on for years to be able to develop stories with communities. And that's what we're doing.
I have to tell you, alone the name Reelwurld, the way you spell it, which also, I guess, is what allowed you to get the .com, is really very clever. It definitely is a good way to start off, especially with early stage startup where you don't have funding and all the other stuff. It's kind of how can I get a .com? Oh, that expresses, however, what it is that you want to do. That was really clever. I like that.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit, just in summary, even though we're going to have a link to your video in here anyway, but give us a bit of a summary of where you're at and how you see the future here.
Sure. So I'll start with where we're at. We've had the company, it'll be 6 years old in September, and we started in 2017, but it's really my life's work. And before it was called Reelwurld, I spent 22 months at Universal Music Group developing the company because I took the idea to every studio. And I sat in every studio with executives there and pitched. And they're like, that's a cool idea, but who's going to do it first? And I was like, what do you mean? That's why I'm talking to you. And so we were so early. We were too early in the studio system. I had consulted for Universal, so I spent some time there and worked on building out the company there with the intention of launching it as a tool for artists to create visual albums with their community. But the core idea of what we're always doing is how do we to just tell any story? And for us, Reelwurld, to be able to control intellectual property and to help other people develop their own intellectual property is really the core driver of the company. I think that servicing studios and networks is absolutely a viable revenue stream once we start moving forward on those types of partnerships and being able to expand worlds like Harry Potter or Batman. I think that's a great, like, hey, you have an audience, they want to create with you. There's no way for them to actually do that. Here's the bridge between you and your audience that is creative and it's real world. So I think that's awesome. But the only way to get there is by actually controlling and owning our own intellectual property and showcasing how much people love it. So as a company, we have one show and we want to have more. We want people to create their own shows and movies on our platform, which is why we're on WeFunder, to expand our technology to allow people to do that. But we have one show right now, Justice for Hire. We have 80,000 people worldwide that are a part of our community. We have hundreds of hours of content created with this community. We got 7.5 million views on our first episode on TikTok, which is where our largest community is. And that's because the TikTok community is very, very much of the cultural behavior of being participants in the content they consume. And participation means commenting, it means creating reaction videos, it means stitching your videos together with other people's videos that they've already created. All of these behaviors are part of the foundation for what makes Reelwurld possible right now, and so relevant in culture. So from a social media standpoint, we really feel like we are on the bleeding edge of the next step of social, again, which is storytelling, which is allowing your community to tell the story with you, because that's actually closer to the foundation of storytelling in humanity, where people are telling stories around fires and every person is telling part of it, rather than one person saying, this is the way the story goes and that's it, period. And that's less part of our human culture than the collaboration is. And we look at any social platform as a story that's being told together as a community, but because they're not framed like that, people don't treat them as such. So we've built one where anything you post is part of one movie or show that we're making together. So that's where we're at right now. We're on WeFunder. We're raising $1,070,000 to expand the technology. You know, we have one patent filed right now. It got filed in February and published in February. It's one patent filed in February. We got through the stages. We're not officially, we're still patent pending. We got through several stages. It took us like 2 years to get to this stage. We also won first place at the Hollywood Tech Black and Brown Pitch Competition in February. We are semi-finalists in Pharrell's Black Ambition Prize as of 2 weeks ago, and a bunch of other fun stuff. You know, we have 13 more patents that we want to file, but it's definitely cost prohibitive. We look at the future, and now I can get into the future. The reason we want to file these patents is because we see ourselves bridging from where we are with one show to having a platform where infinite movies and shows can be created as a community, where people are getting their friends and family and larger communities to come in and participate on a story that they want to tell with a group. And we see Reelwurld, which what we have right now is essentially tools to treat your story like a Hollywood franchise. And having these tools already available, they exist right now. You go to justiceforhire.app. That's our first show, Justice for Hire, where you could be a hero or a villain or a client that hires them. It's like Uber for heroes. Hire a hero or become one and get paid. So we have this one show where, you know, people are making their own mini shows already inside, but having your own world allows for just exponential storytelling. And this suite of tools that we want to provide with filing additional patents, et cetera, really puts us in an Adobe-esque position where we have complementary tool sets that will help guide you and help truncate the film life cycle, the film and television life cycle. For example, going from development to pre-production to production to post-production to marketing and to distribution, and going across that spectrum with many parts of those aspects of those those cycles of those chapters within the cycle actually happening in parallel rather than in the stages that are traditional with the linear type of production life cycle that exists today or that is prominent today. So we've truncated a lot of that already within our app today that you can go and experience right now. And that future of providing these Adobe-esque tools really leads us to building our own Disney World, our own Universal Studios or Universal City, more specifically. And we see ourselves really as part of the end game as having an actual land, having a theme park-esque space that is modular, where what's being created on our platform worldwide with our community, people actually have a physical space to go to where these stories, the best of the best stories that are being told on the platform, have some physical space that for a handful of months or a year, people can come and there's a ticket price and you come in and you actually create more scenes as part of your story in the theme park space. So it's not just come and consume like it is with Disney. You consume, you have some experiences. It's immersive, but you don't actually create. You're not actually a stakeholder in the creativity. You don't actually make money from your contributions to the creativity. That's a big part of what we're doing here. And that's actually something that every studio has fought me on. They're like, Jen, no, we need to own all of the IP. And I'm like, no, that makes no sense. Like if you force ownership, what you're doing is alienating people who actually care. And you're telling them that they're not good enough to own with you. And for us, we're saying, no, you own your own IP. If you come to us with a character and a story, that's your character and your story. We have a very dynamic terms of service that allows us to create with our audience, for us to share in profits with our audience for anything that they post on our platform, but allows them to go anywhere else and monetize without us because it's their creativity. They own it and they should be able to do that. And so we're very creator forward. We're very video forward. We believe that, if Marvel was started today, it would be started on video, not paper. That instead of a writer's room, we would have everybody would be in that writer's room. And instead of characters that we're choosing, we would play the characters and we're in it together. So we see this future where, our Comic-Cons are all of us celebrating each other. And our favorite movies and shows are the ones that we've made together. And, that process of even just making something and being able to look back on it and say, we did this, and then enjoy it and share it with your friends and family for years and years to come. That's something that I experience with my son on a regular basis. We make little films and animations, and he's even in some of the Reelwurld content we create, and we look back on it. And that's something I want to share with the world.
Right. I mean, I'm fascinated actually that, of course, nowadays when everybody has a smartphone, that it almost like gives them their camera to partake alone from that, which is just fascinating.
Absolutely. We see the smartphone as a studio in your pocket, and it already exists where much of the world is walking around with one of those in their pocket. And, studios and networks are slow to move. They're very slow to move. So the opportunity of recognizing that people have the paintbrush right in their pocket, and the entire world, because of TikTok, because of the pandemic, is now in film school. Everyone is learning how to communicate visually, and hiring for content creators has skyrocketed across industries within the last year and a half, because you have since Facebook changed their policies on advertising and who you could advertise to, it's really shifted the need for being able to create audience organically rather than paying for ads. And so we're in a really interesting point in time where Hollywood, there's a strike right now going on with the Writers Guild. There's a strike right now in solidarity going on with the Screen Actors Guild. I have friends that are actors and writers that my heart goes out to them because I want them to have all that they deserve. And simultaneously, that strike is really beneficial for Reelwurld because what we're doing right now is social media, and how we're doing social, because the next step is storytelling, is still very unregulated by the unions. So there's no union. We're not part of any union, fortunately, right now. So we can move while everyone else is at a complete standstill. So we are doing our best to just make sure we stay very focused right now, keep putting out content that we're making with the community, and letting people know that if you want to own part of what we're doing, we're on wefunder.com/Reelwurld, and you can own part of this company.
Right. I mean, I was watching one of your videos and I was quite amazed that you're going on about how you're doing some Lyft driving, I believe, in
Absolutely.
the past, and utilized it as a wonderful way to take advantage of the captive audience, if you will. The funny part is that that is something I did about 10 years ago almost, when Uber was just getting started, and actually for NextRx in my case. And I thought, damn, this is great. You know, when you have people, well, it's not for everyone, but some of them really enjoy the experience. I got to sit here anyway while you bring me from wherever it is that I'm going to.
I'm going to show you. So this is what I started driving Lyft last year as a means to, here, I'll show you this. This is what I pass out. This is the
okay.
that I pass out in my in real world, my Lyft and Uber rides. And the concept here is that I'm in Hollywood. And I was paying for digital ads out of pocket, and we had quite honestly, we had a lead investor that committed, $50K in funds, and all my love goes out to the guy, but he did not follow through. He was not he did not come through with his word. And so it happens. Apparently, it happens all the time on WeFunder. So I'm like, okay, well, I have to somehow get the word out, and I was paying for these digital ads, and it's not sustainable if the capital that he was going to put in was going to cover the marketing costs. So I have to figure out a way. We can't just have a campaign sitting there with no push. So how am I going to get in front of people every single day if we don't have a digital marketing spend? So I'm like, well, I know how to pass out postcards because I grew up in the comic book business, but how do I actually talk to people? If I stand on the corner and hand them out, they're just walking by, and that's like shooting fish in a barrel. But then I found that Lyft will give you a car to drive for them. I'm like, what do you mean? And so they had this like rental program where they just give it to you, and then you pay later on. I was like, what? Well, hold on, I can turn a car into a mobile pitch meeting. Right. If I target Hollywood, Santa Monica, and Marina Del Rey, right, then I'll be around the entertainment and the technology folks. So let me see what happens. So I drove for 2 months. In 2 months, we got 2 partnerships and new investors and new cast members. And I stopped for a little bit and actually got into a car accident, first ever in my life, which stopped me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to come back to this. And I started Uber again a few months later, and we got more partnerships. Our 4th partnership kicks off August 23rd with Bootsy Bellows, which is a celebrity club here in LA, where we're going to do a ticketed event for Reelwurld and Justice for Hire, our first show, where people are going to come and we're going to shoot a scene. We do events like this fairly often. So people will be a part of a scene that we're going to make together on Sunset Boulevard. You're welcome to come if you're in town. But it's been an absolute game changer. We got an office space partnership. We have an office space now on Sunset and Vine for Reelwurld. I hardly use it because, I don't really need to go to an office, but it's awesome to have whenever we need. And it's just people really resonate with, someone driving around to tell them about, hey, we're putting a face and a name to the reality of what we're building. We're building something that's actually all about looking people in the eye and creating.
That's the whole point. In other words, it is real entrepreneurship, if you will, in the most fundamental sense. And I think some people anyway, really respond to that or resonate to that. And that is great to see. Just out of curiosity, why did you switch from Lyft to Uber? Because of the accident?
Yeah. So the accident, it was really unfortunate. So I actually got in a second accident 2 weeks ago, almost a year and 3 days after the first, and 2 blocks away from the same area where I got hit from behind. So I've gotten hit from behind twice. And the one 2 weeks ago, this is 2 weeks ago, was like near fatal. It was actually like terrifying. So, God bless everyone who drives. But I'll say that the first accident, Lyft essentially stops. If you get into an accident while you're on Lyft, and you're renting from them, they will not rent to you anymore, even if it's not your fault. And that to me was very disappointing because I was paying for the extra insurance, and it's, there's everything shows that it's not my fault. Even the person who crashed into me, just said that it's fully their responsibility. And it was challenging to see that I like driving for Lyft. It's challenging doing the driving no matter what. And of course to me, I'm doing it because we're doing the campaign. So, if it wasn't for the campaign, I would just, focus on my production work because I've run a production company since college. And I also coach Tai Chi. So that's a major part of my life and a major part of my day.
I believe you're a champion there in Tai Chi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes, three-time Tai Chi World Cup champion on the Taiwan Cup, and I coached the U.S. team. And it's, if it wasn't for Tai Chi, I definitely wouldn't even be doing Reelwurld. It's the ability to have a kinesthetic counterpart to a lot of the concepts that I feel like Reelwurld embodies, connecting to others and being able to expand your awareness, and whether that's through storytelling and expanding a story, because, several storytellers, their awareness is very linear in storytelling and very formulaic. The more deeply you understand a system, any system, I think you're going to be able to expand your awareness within that system. And so because of Tai Chi, it's helped me to apply many of these concepts to my business and also to the creative ideation behind the next steps in the innovations that we're pushing forward. So I'm very grateful.
That is really fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Thank you so much, Nam.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.